Hey guys, what's going on? And the 2% of girls that are watching, including the one that I had a nice long conversation with today. I always appreciate our conversations. May or may not be crushing on you a tiny, tiny bit. Uh, so I do have to talk about something not quite as fun here today. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so if you're planning a trip to Medellin, if you're already here renting month to month, or you bought property thinking Airbnb income was going to be part of your plan, I want you to take a beat. Slow down just for a moment because there's a little bit of a shift happening right now that a lot of people are either missing or choosing not to take very seriously. What's going on isn't internet panic. It's not anti-tourism rhetoric. I'm not trying to gatekeep Medellin. I'm not a hater. I'm not any of that stuff. Just trying to tell you what's going on. It's a combination of national regulation, local enforcement, and neighborhood pushback that's been building quietly, like a resentment that's building quietly for years. It's finally reaching a point where travelers, expats, and foreign investors are going to feel it in pretty real ways. So at the national level, Colombia is moving towards stricter enforcement around short-term rentals. The basic idea is that a property is listed on a platform like Airbnb or VRBO. It needs to be legally zoned and registered for tourist use. And on paper, that sounds super simple, but in Medellin, that's anything but that. Because a large number of the listings that you see on Airbnb now, they're never compliant in the first place. They existed in kind of a gray area where nobody enforced and everybody kind of tolerated because tourism was flowing and money was coming in and enforcement was super loose. But what's changing now is that tolerance is going to be replaced by accountability, which is in short supply here, unfortunately. Responsibility is shifting onto the platform and onto the hosts, which means that listings that don't meet zoning requirements are going to start to disappear off the platforms. Not slowly, not politely, not quietly, quickly, immediately. And when furnished short-term rentals drop in the city, it's going to be disastrous because this city and this country in general, it kind of relies heavily on short-term rentals. So prices are going to go up, options are going to shrink, and uncertainty is going to spread almost immediately. So at the same time, it's not just coming from the government. A lot of neighborhoods are pushing back as well. And unfortunately, that's the part that most foreigners are kind of underestimating unless you're here, unless you know. And places like Ciudad del Rio, where I live, entire neighborhood here, the entire neighborhood is band together. And no, you won't find a rental on the platforms that are under 30 days because if people do, they face pretty strict fines. And it's because of something that happened in 2022 with a very shady Airbnb host at the building here called La Riviera. I actually bought an apartment in that place a while back, but that's neither here nor there. But because of what happened there, all of the residents, myself included, got together and voted no short-term rentals shorter than 30 days. And all of the administrations here, they enforced that very, very harshly. It's not good. It could be an up to $500 fine, which would be a month and a half of salary here. So you can imagine that people know that's being taken seriously. And it's not because of politics, but it's because residents are sick and tired of noise, turnover, security issues, and they're watching rents climb because communities are kind of hollowed out and they're just being used as essentially hotels. And I'm not going to go into the gentrification because I think that is the blame on that lies on both sides. And I'm not going to go into all that. But basically, once a building makes that decision or once a neighborhood makes that decision, that's it. There is no appeal process for a foreign owner who assumed that this flexibility was going to keep going and they could use this as a rental, short-term rental. The unit either goes to a different rental category or stops producing income altogether. So basically, you're either going to be compliant, you're going to have longer term rentals, or you're going to have to sell or sit on it. It's your choice. So basically, it's going to be a hard lesson for investors who bought here thinking that Medellin was going to be this gold mine. And the gold rush is kind of coming to an end, unfortunately. To a point. It's still going to be here, but this is going to benefit the owners who are compliant right now. So this is where it really starts to matter for travelers and also for expats who are staying here, people that are here on longer term visas. Most foreigners don't understand how renting actually works in Colombia. So long-term residential rentals here aren't plug and play like back in the US or in Europe. Landlords typically require a Colombian cosigner, also called a fiador, proof of Colombian income, approval from rental insurance companies, and I actually have gone through this entire process. It sucks. It's not easy. You'll need local credit, which a lot of people don't have. Even if you do have Dion and you've gone through and got your RUT or your RUT, you're not going to have it right away. It's going to take a while to get. And you'll also need local employment history. And that's super abnormal here. That's not something you're going to come with your first year and get. So what surprises a lot of people as well, and this is something if you have a handshake agreement, you may not understand that landlords are typically, or they're not legally allowed to collect security deposits here. They can't collect last month's rent. Like in some places in the US, a landlord can collect first month's, last month's, and a deposit. Here, it's just first month's rent. Instead of mitigating risks with money, they manage it with paperwork and guarantees. And if you're a foreigner, there's no guarantee to the landlord that you're not gonna get tired of Colombia, get strung out, get on a plane and go home, because there's no repercussions to you. So that's why furnished rentals and platforms like Airbnb have become a default option for outsiders here in the first place. And they fill the gap that the traditional rental market doesn't really touch here. So the problem is that if furnished rentals start disappearing from platforms due to enforcement, zoning rules, etc., or even internal building bans, foreigners don't automatically slide right into long-term leases, because if you have a 6-month visa here, you're probably not going to sign a year lease. You're probably not going to want to do that. You're going to hit a wall. And landlords don't suddenly change requirements, and there are a lot of units that shift back to local tenants who already meet those requirements. So what creates a pressure point is that people arrive expecting flexibility and fewer options, basically fewer problems and higher prices, more risk. You accept those, but that's gonna be exaggerated here quickly if this passes. I do want to make sure that I mention in here as well, it's just a referendum for right now. It's not law, but people are voting on it, and I don't foresee that this is going to fail. I think this is going to pass, unfortunately. And I've already seen people forced to move multiple times in a year because a unit that they were renting just became quietly non-compliant with the laws. And that kind of instability is only going to increase if this enforcement tightens. It's not going to get any better. But on the investor side, this is a reality check that a lot of people don't want to hear, that Medellin doesn't guarantee your speculative income. The model of buying, furnishing, listing, and collecting rent only works when the platforms are tolerated and the building management, building administration stays passive. And right now, both of those assumptions are weakening. So some investors will have to adapt to shifting to midterm or corporate rentals, which is a possibility, and some are just going to have to sell. Some will learn that Medellin doesn't really protect you very much as an investor, unfortunately. It protects residential stability more than it protects your cash flow, especially when communities are starting to feel pushed too far. And there is a growing resentment here. It's not quite as bad as Mexico City's, but it is growing. And honestly, that's why it matters so much right now. If you're renting or if you're buying, you'll need people to tell you what building is risky when a neighborhood is changing, and a lot of them are, not just here in Ciudad del Rio. You'll need to know when a deal looks too good to be true, looks too good on paper, when that's going to cause problems later. So I have 3 people that I recommend that you work with. I've worked with them. There are plenty of good people here. If you're going to buy or you're going to rent, there's 3 people and 1 agency that I recommend working with. The first is my boy Andrew Macia, Medellin Buzz here on YouTube. Great guy. I've interviewed with him, even though the interview is kind of hard to watch now. I also recommend Ignacio Plaza. He's a great guy. I've dealt with him many times on other things. He's a very straightforward and honest person. And the other one is Carolina Restrepo. All 3 of these have one thing in common, which is very important to you, is they've all lived in the US. They've all spent a lot of time in the US. So they know how things work, and they know the differences between both markets, and they're going to be able to close that gap of knowledge that you may not have here. So it's huge to work with somebody like that. There's a lot of people that are like Colombian agents who've never been to the US and don't really know the laws that well. They're not going to understand where that gap is. And it's a huge gap. It's a pretty big thing. So these guys are going to know when something's too good to be true, and they're going to let you know in advance. And if you're on the rental side, they're going to help you to know which buildings are compliant and how to stay compliant within them. So here's the thing, and I want this to be very clear, that Medellín's not closing its doors. Tourism isn't ending. It's just like the S-tourism that's going on. Tourism's not ending. They're just changing the rules, and it's their country. They can change the rules if they want to. Their rules are changing. The margins are tightening for ignorance. It's disappearing really quickly. So if you're coming here, just assume there's not going to be flexibility on this stuff. If you're going to move here, I cannot recommend enough that you get your living situation, you get that ironed out before you start the visa process. Because if you get a visa and you don't have somewhere to live here, you're going to be behind the 8 ball, my friend. So don't do that. The problem is that if you're already here, this is where the real problem is. You got to know that the housing market in the ecosystem of apartments and rentals, that's changing right underneath your feet. So people that are going to adapt well are going to stay comfortable. The people who assume that there's going to be no change, you're going to learn quickly that there is. The other part too is that I want to close with is I was told a Bruce Lee quote a long time ago, and it fits right now. And that is to be water, my friend. Flow around obstacles instead of hitting them head on. And if you live with that in your head here in Medellin, you're going to do fine. You'll have a great time here. So I'm also going to do the other video today with the bike, or with the scooters, the whoosh scooters. I used one to go around the block, and it was kind of cool. I kind of want one of the damn things now. So I might buy one, and I know I'm going to get one from somebody that has an extra one. So, but I want to review that. I'm going to take that from here to Parque Poblado, or maybe Manila. I'm not sure, but I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go so I can see how this really is and how everything kind of works with it. So I'll do that later today. I'll probably put that up tomorrow, and yeah, I just want to say, let's talk about this down in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it, and let's keep it civil. You know, I don't want to turn this into a flaming session for either side of the gentrification thing, because to be honest, that's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. It's not just the foreigners, it's not just the locals, not just the landlords. It's both sides, and I think that what I think is happening is that the government is stepping in now. And this is what you don't want. The last thing that you want, especially here, is the government to step in. So thank you guys for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Share this video with anybody who's planning on coming here to invest or planning on moving here. It's super important stuff. And with everything in Colombia, there's no such thing as stability here. Everything changes so quickly. So be safe, everybody. And I'll talk to you in the next video. See ya.